to go a little bit into and tell me where this fits in when
Good.
we talk about operating system.
Yes.
You've been married a very, very long time,
Yep.
45 years,
45.
45
40,
years. No,
sorry, we've been together 46. We
yeah,
got married in 79, so we married 44.
44 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I look at, the relationship. What does it take to be in that relationship? And I know it's not a straight line. It
Yeah.
goes up and down. And I think that, Stephanie and I talk about it in our relationship. We've been together 30, we've a little over 30. We've been married 27 years. Like when we get into it, we get into it. Like we go hard. And but there's a few things in terms of how we argue. Number one is we argue, we never insult, we never mean to hurt or take, we can debate shit really hard and we can be angry with each other, but it's just in how we argue. It's not about the other person or making them feel bad or, complaining about how they look. Like it's none of that.
Yeah.
And out of that comes often growth. We may pout for a day, but we always come back to each other knowing and being able to review, reflect, and go, okay, here's where we need to get to. So it's not a straight line to
Oh,
have an amazing relationship.
oh,
And the one agreement we do have is that we just will never leave each other.
yeah. Yeah. Someone was a young person about 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. They were getting married, and they said, anybody who's been married for 20 years or more, write in this book the keys to staying married for 20 years or more. And somebody wrote, don't leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
the key to a long marriage is not getting divorced.
don't get
Um,
the now, Patrick, to what you said, some of my work is with couples, but either couples in a work setting, where they're colleagues, or couples in a relationship setting where they're lovers. And something I got exposed to maybe 3 years ago. It was called do a retake. So anytime you get into one of those things with your partner, the first person to notice it says, wait a second, I think we need to do a retake here.
hmm.
And then you actually replay it, being your better selves. So you don't just talk about what went wrong. Here's the way I could have said that. And then how would you have spawned? And you actually play it out like someone just gave you a new script. Because it's all up here. What you're doing then is creating that neural pathway. So the next time you might be more likely to take that new script rather than repeat the same old fight. Do a
Hmm.
redo, do a replay. My parents had a thing, that they said, never go to bed angry. So
Hmm.
resolve that mistake, that breakdown, resolve it before you go to bed, and then do a redo,
Hmm.
do a do over, take a mulligan.
You know, there was an exercise. I don't know if it was you that gave me the exercise or Anurag, and this was years ago
Yep,
in World of Relationship. And I share this because
yep,
I will still do this every so
yes,
often when I
yep,
know I'm not being my best self.
sure.
And that is, the exercise was this: for the weekend. I think that was the assignment. It was a Friday. For the rest of the weekend, everything you do, you put Stephanie on the list. So in other words, if I'm going to go up and if I'm going to go grab a glass of water, Stephanie, I'm going to grab a glass of water. Would you like me to get you a glass of water?
Got
She
it.
says, I'm going to go up and take a shower. Let me go and run the water for you. Make sure it's hot. Like, think in terms of, what am I going to do for my significant other every time I make a decision, every time I make a move? How will I include her? How will I fold her in so that she's part of it? Like something that puts her in front of all of the decisions I'm making on at any given time. So it was like, focus on her for the weekend. And I think I described the exercise as I remember it anyways. It's kind of how I do it anyways now.
I'm stealing that one. You didn't get that one from me, but that's going into my toolkit, and that's going to be coming out of my mouth next week with some of the couples I work with. Thank you.
I'm going to tell you something. I did that for 3 or 4 days the first time.
Yeah.
And one night we curled up in bed and Stephanie rolled over to give me a kiss goodnight. And she says, I just wanted to ask you one question. What did you do with my husband? Where did he go? And is this a prank? and I burst out
Great.
laughing.
And on the other side of it, one of the promises that when when our relationship got what I call stale, and it started becoming transactional.
Hmm.
We were relating to each other, who was going to do this and who was going to do that, but it wasn't exciting, it wasn't joyous, it wasn't fulfilling. We weren't expressing a lot of love. I had this insight about relationships. Most relationships are usually the most exciting in the beginning.
Hmm.
And I went, why are they exciting in the beginning? And I went, oh, because you don't know who the person is.
Hmm.
So you're in this way of discovery.
Discovery. Yeah.
You're curious, you're wondering, and you're discovering. Then the brain takes over and you figure them out. Okay, now I know the way Stephanie is. Now I know the way Catherine is. If I want this, do it this way. If I don't want, and so it becomes formulaic. So I
Hmm.
made a promise to Catherine, which I don't keep, but I love the promise. To never know who she is.
Hmm.
So every day I have to discover newly, who am I married to today?
Mm.
And like I said, I don't keep that, but that's an aspirational promise to
Hmm.
live in discovery with Catherine rather than to live in knowing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at and I'm so blessed because Stephanie, it's like she lives to look after me, yet she's a very
She
accomplished
lives to
business
look after
person.
you. She doesn't need you. And yet you guys have such a powerful partnership.
It's crazy how much she spoils me. I'm not as good at it, but she's come to realize one thing, that we live on a nice beautiful large property, and
You
I mow
do.
lawn and I do all sorts of things. I make sure that she doesn't ever have to worry about whether the lawn's mowed, and sometimes it takes precedent over a lot of things because I want to get stuff done, all the rest of it. And she goes, she'll say to her friend, I know Patrick loves me because he mowed the lawn today. It's so true. It's the only way I got, to show. Sometimes it's an interesting way of a relationship. And the point is that when you focus on that other person and take
Yeah.
time to do that, it's a whole new appreciation.
Totally.
And but it's a practice. Like, you have to literally consciously do it.
Patrick, when I was on the road a lot, when I worked at Landmark and I was overseas or wherever I was, I had an occasion in my calendar every single day, and it said, Catherine is present to how much I love her. It
Mm,
didn't say so there was either a text, a phone call, a message,
mm,
something, because otherwise I'd get caught up in, I said, oh, we're in a different time zone. She's sleeping, whatever. But I put it in my calendar because I couldn't rely on my brain to do it. But I wanted that result. I didn't want the distance and the time apart to unravel what we had built.
mm. Now, we talked a lot about a lot of different things, but
Yes,
something
we
I want to
sure
get.
did.
We covered a lot of ground here today. I want to I want to just add, when we talk about. Okay, so how do I want to phrase this question? I have to think about it a little bit, but let me just put it out there, and then we can work backwards from
Good.
that. So I'm thinking about operating system,
Yes.
and the fact that we can consciously adjust and understand what our operating system is to put in corrections and improvements and
Or
do
let's use a computer term. We can update it.
update it.
Yeah.
So what plays into that is some of the things we talked about. Knowing what our values are shifts our operating system, right? Understanding what our purpose is shifts our operating system because we have to show up and be a different
I,
way.
I think you mean something that you didn't say. So
Okay.
having a purpose or values demands that you update your
Mm,
operating system. It
okay.
doesn't cause you to do it.
Yes.
It
Got
does
it.
not cause, there's all those plaques on the wall about mission statements. And if people aren't actually changing their behavior, they're just slogans.
Well, beautiful. So that is really, and then now when we kind of come full circle into this conversation about relationship, and we of course we threw in their careers and businesses and all the rest of it. But that's all really being aware and bringing our awareness to our operating system. How do we continue to upgrade and or expand on it, if you will, create capacity, because that's such an important part of it.
Yeah.
I can't say, I can't even express the capacity that I've gained, how much I've
Yes.
stretched over the past, I don't even 5 years. It's
Yes.
crazy,
Yes. Yeah, because you're open to that.
but it's
Because
intentional. And it,
that's what I mean. Oh,
yeah.
sorry, I didn't say it right. You're more than open to that. You're committed to that.
Hmm.
There's something that's very simple in my view and profound at the same time. Three distinctions that I've noticed over the last 6 weeks and have been talking to people about that distinguish us from other mammals. So one is we have imaginations.
Hmm.
So human beings can imagine things that don't yet exist.
Hmm.
Good. Yep. For better or for worse, we can imagine calamities. We can imagine, growing. We can
Hmm.
imagine being in an extraordinary relationship. The
Hmm.
second thing we can do is we can commit. So we imagine it. Just imagining, that's like daydreaming. That's tripping. You're
Hmm.
tripping, man. Then we can commit. So you've not only imagined a better Patrick, you're committed to developing it. And
Hmm.
that shapes how you spend your time and your energy. And then
Hmm.
the third thing we can do is we can tell stories. We make up a narrative, whether we want to or not, we make up a narrative about what's going on. And most people don't distinguish their narrative from what's actually going. They think they're a narrative. Oh, I think I'm not good enough. No, that's a narrative. That's not a description of fact. So being
Hmm.
able to, are we living in an empowering narrative? Have we imagined something that inspires us? And have we committed to living it? And I think those three things, can keep us moving forward. So the narrative that I live inside of is that I'm growing and developing,
Hmm.
and that everything that comes my way is an opportunity, whether I succeeded or not. I live in a world of opportunity, not because I live in a different world than my neighbor, but because the narrative I have about the world is it's rich with opportunity,
Hmm.
and the future is not written. And getting back to full circle, you and I get to determine that. We get to write that future and then
Hmm.
live true to it and accomplish it, or have a good time failing to accomplish it.